Have you ever paused long enough to realize that while you're chasing the world, you're losing pieces of yourself? In a culture obsessed with validation and speed, we pour ourselves into proving our worth, trying to impress, trying to belong, trying to be seen by people who haven't even seen their own reflection clearly. But here's the hard truth. You are your greatest investment. Not your job, not your status, not even your bank account. Because if your soul is empty, nothing you build around you will ever feel full. If your heart is restless, no amount of external achievement will bring peace. And if your spirit is neglected, even the most glamorous life will feel hollow. God never intended for you to live from the outside in. He created you to live from the inside out. You were designed to overflow with purpose and not run on fumes, trying to earn what was already yours. Some of you are exhausted, not because you're weak, but because you've been pouring into broken cups, relationships, friendships, spaces that can't hold you, and you wonder why you always feel drained. You wonder why, no matter how deeply you love or how freely you give, you end up disappointed, forgotten, or hurt. It's not because you lack love, it's because you've misplaced your value. When you don't know your worth, you spend your life trying to prove it to people who were never meant to carry it. But hear this clearly. God stamped you with divine purpose before you ever experienced rejection. Before life bruised you, before the world lied to you, inside of you, He planted everything you need to stand tall. But the world won't tell you that. The world tells you to hustle harder, to keep scrolling, to stay busy, because somehow being busy became proof of being important. You scroll through curated moments of other people's lives, comparing their highlights to your behind the scenes. And all the while, the enemy is stealing your focus from the one thing that truly matters you, the real you, the one God knit together in the secret place. The one chosen, anointed, and called for a purpose. You're trying to heal, but you're still entertaining the very things that broke you. You're trying to grow, but you're still dragging around the weight that's holding you down. And then you ask why you're tired, why you feel numb, why joy feels like a memory. You've become so skilled at showing up for everyone else, you've forgotten how to show up for yourself. But today, something shifts. Today, you draw the line. You say, enough. Enough of giving time to people who don't value it. Enough of watering soil that no longer bears fruit. Enough of waiting for others to recognize what God already declared over your life. Start investing in what feeds your spirit. Begin your day with prayer, not with scrolling. Read something that strengthens your mind. Take a walk in silence and let your soul speak. Protect your peace like it's treasure, because it is. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every voice deserves your attention. You've lived like time is unlimited, but it's not. Every moment spent ignoring your growth is a moment lost. You are not selfish for choosing yourself. You're not wrong for focusing on your healing, your peace, your purpose. People may call it cold. They may say you've changed. Let them, because the moment you stop watering people who never poured into you, they'll call your peace pride. But you don't owe anyone an apology for becoming whole. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to God. There's a reason you feel that nudge in your chest, that whisper that says, there's more. That's not fear. That's not anxiety. That's the Spirit of God calling you out of distraction and into discipline, out of people-pleasing and into purpose. When was the last time you sat still and asked, God, what do you want from me? Not what the world wants, not what your family expects, but what does the one who formed your soul want? You weren't made to run in circles. You were made to run your race. But how can you run your race if you keep stopping to ask the crowd for their opinion? Focus on yourself, build what God placed in you, guard your mind, renew your heart, feed your spirit, because when you do, everything else begins to align. The people meant for you will find you. The doors meant to open will swing wide. And the purpose that's been waiting will unfold before your very eyes. You don't need more opinions. You need more obedience. You don't need more applause. You need more alignment. And that starts when you treat yourself like the divine investment you truly are. So stop wasting your life chasing empty approval. Start chasing purpose. The clock is ticking, and your life is too sacred to spend distracted. Not everyone deserves access to you. And I know for those raised to believe kindness means constant availability, this may sound harsh, but hear me. God didn't call you to be a doormat. He called you to be a vessel. And a vessel must be filled before it can pour. Some of you are running on empty because you've given away too much, your heart, your time, your energy. You're tired, not because you're fragile, but because you've surrounded yourself with people who only take and never give. People who only call when they need something. People who disappear until it's convenient for them again. And the moment you set a boundary, suddenly you're the villain. But let me ask you this. Why do we keep opening the door to people who knock with empty hands and leave with full pockets? Why do we ignore the nudge in our spirit that says something's off just to avoid conflict? You're not meant to carry the weight of everyone's expectations. Some people confuse your silence for permission. Some think your kindness is weakness. But there comes a time when you must shut the door not in anger, but in wisdom. You can love people from a distance. You can pray for them without walking with them. Just because someone was part of your past doesn't mean they belong in your future. God doesn't remove people to punish you. He removes them to protect you. Because every time you release what no longer aligns with your calling, you make room for what does. So stop chasing. Start choosing. Choose peace. Choose clarity. Choose you. Because when you finally focus on yourself, everything else will fall into place. Have you ever wondered if the blessings meant for you are being blocked, not by circumstances, but by the company you keep? In the previous message, we uncovered the power of choosing yourself. Now, we go even deeper, because sometimes the doors God is trying to open in your life remain closed. Not because you're not ready, but because too many people have their hands on the handle. Some of the breakthroughs you've been praying for have been delayed because you're still entertaining people who were never meant to walk into your next chapter. You're explaining yourself to ears that don't listen, giving second chances to hands that shattered you the first time. But boundaries, friend, are not cruel, they are sacred. Even Jesus stepped away from the crowds to pray. He didn't stop at every village. He moved with purpose, not pressure. And if the Son of God knew when to withdraw, why do we feel guilty for doing the same? Sometimes silence is the loudest declaration of peace. You don't need to argue. You don't need to explain. When God tells you to move, you move even if no one claps, even if no one understands. Alignment with heaven will always matter more than agreement from the crowd. And if that means walking alone for a season, then let that solitude sanctify you. Better to walk quietly with God than loudly with people going nowhere. You are not responsible for shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. You are not required to dim your light so others feel safe in their darkness. Some people loved you better when you were broken because your healing reminds them of the healing they've postponed. Others were more comfortable when you were lost because your clarity confronts their confusion. But that is not your burden to carry. You don't need revenge. You don't need to call anyone out. Sometimes the strongest move is stepping back and letting time speak. God sees what you cannot. He hears the words spoken behind your back. So trust Him to elevate. Trust Him to separate. Trust Him to protect. Stop trying to be available to everyone. Be available to purpose. Many are drained because they confuse being needed with being valued. But need isn't the same as love. Some people need you because it's convenient, not because they cherish you. You are no one's backup plan. no one's emotional dumping ground. You are a child of God whole, worthy, destined, and when you begin to walk in that truth, the wrong ones will call it arrogance, but the right ones will honor your growth and rise with you. Stop apologizing for guarding your peace. You don't have to explain why you're no longer picking up every call or showing up to every event. When God gives you a new direction, you owe no one an explanation, only your obedience. Let them misunderstand, let them gossip, let them walk away. You stay anchored, you stay aligned, because God's voice will always call you higher. Purpose doesn't wait on permission. That's the hard truth. Many of us live paralyzed, waiting for approval, for applause, for the green light. But God never said, wait until they clap. He said, go. When God breathed life into you, He planted purpose deep inside. Yet too many remain stuck, frozen by fear, trapped by what ifs. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm not enough? But let me ask you this. What if you fly? What if everything changes? What if the only thing standing between you and your destiny is your own hesitation? Every great figure in Scripture moved in faith. David didn't wait for applause to defeat Goliath. Esther didn't wait for everyone's approval to speak up for her people. Joseph didn't pause his purpose waiting for an apology. They moved uncertain, but obedient. And so must you. Faith isn't about feeling ready. It's about stepping anyway. It's about placing your hand in God's and walking through doors that look intimidating, knowing He's already on the other side. Yes, His timing may stretch your patience, but don't mistake delay for denial. Sometimes He's preparing you, strengthening your roots before you bear the fruit. But waiting for others' permission, that's not preparation. That's procrastination dressed in politeness. And it's time to shed it. You were not created to be ordinary. You were created to shine, to influence, to lead. You have the gifts, you have the wisdom, you have the power. It's all there waiting on you to stop waiting. Choose obedience over opinion. Choose forward motion over fear. God's vision for you is bigger than the limits others place on you. Bigger than the voice in your head that says, not yet. The question is, will you answer the call? Will you stop waiting to be ready and move forward because you're willing? Because if you do, everything will change. And this time, it won't be because someone gave you permission. It'll be because you finally realized God already did. Have you ever felt that pull the nudge in your spirit, urging you to move forward even when everything around you whispers, what if? That's the whisper of fear, of doubt, of insecurity. But when you silence those voices and choose to step out in faith, something powerful happens. You align yourself with a force far greater than your fear. You step into alignment with God's power, which is stronger than any obstacle standing in your path. I get it, it's not easy. The world will try to water down your courage. People will urge you to be practical, to play it safe, to shrink your dreams into something manageable. They'll say, be realistic, don't aim too high, or worse, that's not for people like you. But God didn't call you to blend in, He called you to be bold. He called you to be a person of purposa, a person who doesn't move according to pressure, but according to promise. A person who walks by faith, not by sight. Purpose is not passive. It doesn't sit and wait for the stars to align. Purpose demands motion. Purpose demands you stop waiting for someone to give you the green light and start moving with conviction, because while you wait, opportunities pass. While you wait, dreams gather dust. And while you wait, the world misses out on what only you can offer. It's time to rise, time to act, time to stop asking for permission and start asking God for courage. Because the truth is, the path might not be crystal clear, but the one who called you is. The God who planted purpose in your heart will equip you for every single step. Yes, you might stumble. Yes, you might fall. But every step forward is a victory over fear. Every step is a declaration that you trust God more than your doubts. Don't wait for the world to say yes. Don't wait for the conditions to be perfect. God's timing is now. His permission is already granted. You are called. You are chosen. You are equipped. That is your truth walk in it. So many of us get caught in the exhausting cycle of people pleasing. We bend. We mold ourselves into shapes we were never meant to take, all in the name of harmony, of acceptance, of approval. But in doing so, we slowly forget who we truly are. We lose sight of the divine fingerprint that makes us unique. Here's the truth. When your focus is on pleasing people, you hand over your power. You become addicted to applause, to validation, to fleeting approval. But the crowd's praise is fickle. One moment you're a hero, the next you're forgotten. One day you're adored, the next you're judged. That's why you can't build your life on their opinions. Their opinions shift like shadows. When you live to please people, your calling gets diluted. Your purpose becomes foggy. You begin avoiding rejection instead of pursuing God's direction. But you weren't created to be a people pleaser. You were created to be a purpose pleaser. You were made to tune your ear to God's voice, not the world's noise. Look at the greats, those who walked in true faith. They weren't trying to please everyone. They weren't measuring their worth by public opinion. They stood for truth. They stood for righteousness. They obeyed God even when it was unpopular, even when it cost them everything. Maybe you're there right now exhausted from trying to keep everyone happy, saying yes when your soul screamed no. Ignoring your own needs to meet everyone else's. And now, you're drained, you're empty. That's because people-pleasing is a losing game. You will never satisfy everyone. And in trying, you lose yourself. But when you stop chasing approval and start chasing purpose, something shifts. Your identity anchors in the unshakable. Your clarity sharpens. Your peace returns. Because God's approval is the only approval that truly matters. You have to learn to say not out of defiance, but out of devotion. Not to be cold, but to be clear. Every yes you give to something outside of God's plan is a no to something better He's trying to give you. That's why boundaries matter. Boundaries are not selfish, they're sacred. They protect your soul. They carve out space where God's voice can be heard above the noise. When you set boundaries, you declare, I value what God placed inside me. You say, my calling matters, and I won't let anyone steal it. It's not easy. Sometimes it feels like your worth is tied to being liked. You fear rejection more than regret. But the Word says, the fear of man is a trap, but trust in the Lord leads to safety. Living for God's approval liberates you. It frees you from insecurity. It loosens the chains of needing to manage others' opinions. It releases you to be fully, unapologetically you. It takes faith to live that way, to say, even if they don't understand me, I'll still stand. Even if they walk away, I'll still obey. That kind of strength doesn't come from within, it comes from the Holy Spirit. He will empower you when you feel weak. He will give you wisdom when you feel lost. He will guard your heart when criticism tries to crush you. So pause and ask, who am I really living for? Am I driven by likes or led by love? Am I sacrificing peace for popularity? Am I trading truth for acceptance? Because the road to purpose is not paved with applause. It's paved with obedience. It's paved with resilience. It's paved with the willingness to be misunderstood in the name of walking in truth. And when you walk that road, you'll find a joy no one can steal, a peace no one can break, a life no crowd can define. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out for God's glory. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out for God's glory. And that's where we pick up the thread standing out, not just to be different, but to be deeply aligned with your purpose. Because the more you chase after people's applause, the more you lose touch with God's call. And once you recognize that, the only approval that matters becomes crystal clear. So stop wasting your time chasing validation. Start investing that time in pleasing the one who gave you breath, purpose, and life. Because in Him is where your true strength lives. That's where peace grows. That's where your purpose ignites. Too often, we're pulled in 100 directions by the world's noise-endless scrolling, constant notifications, the pressure to keep up. But motion isn't always progress. Activity isn't always productivity. And busy doesn't always mean blessed. We wake up and rush from task to task, believing that busyness is a badge of success. But if we're honest, how often does that leave us feeling hollow, disconnected, and burned out? We end up mistaking the urgent for the important. And in doing so, we miss what God has been trying to show us all along. That's why we must pause, reflect, realign. Some distractions wear masks. They look like good things work opportunities, social connections, even ministry obligations. But beneath the surface, they sap your time and steal your focus. They pull your attention away from your calling, not toward it. Think of Martha and Mary. One was busy, the other was devoted. Martha ran around trying to do it all. Mary sat at Jesus' feet. And when Jesus spoke, He praised Mary not because she was doing less, but because she chose what truly mattered. So ask yourself, what's taking up your time? What are you feeding? Your spirit or your stress, your purpose or your pride? Are you pouring into relationships that build you or ones that drain you dry? And maybe the harder question, are you willing to say no? Learning to say no is one of the most powerful skills you'll ever develop. It's not just about avoiding distractions, it's about honoring your assignment. Every time you say no to what doesn't serve your purpose, you're saying yes to what does. You're creating sacred space for growth. You're guarding your focus like treasure, because it is. Your focus is the fuel for your purpose. Urgent doesn't mean important. Urgent demands your attention, but important demands your intention. And if you don't take control of your schedule, someone else will. If you don't define your priorities, the world will define them for you. God's calling over your life isn't something to be juggled between distractions. It's something to be pursued with intentionality. He's not looking for frantic effort. He's calling for focused faith. Even Jesus withdrew from the crowds to pray. Even He stepped away from the noise to sit with the Father. And if the Son of God needed solitude to stay aligned, how much more do we? Distraction is a thief. It steals your joy, your clarity, your energy. But focus is a weapon. Focus is the compass that guides you through the fog. It's the light that reveals the next step, even when the full path isn't clear. So today, choose to reclaim your time, identify what's draining you and release it, protect what feeds your soul, prioritize what deepens your faith, because your time is limited, your assignment is sacred, and your purpose is too valuable to waste. So no, success won't fall into your lap. Peace won't just arrive with the sunrise. Fulfillment won't magically appear one day. They're forged, built, earned through consistent devotion. And that devotion isn't always glamorous. It's showing up when it's hard. It's pushing forward when you're weary. It's trusting God's process even when you can't see the result. There will be days when the road feels long, nights when doubt feels louder than faith, but it's in those moments, those refining, stretching moments, that your real strength is born, not from your own might, but from God's brutal. Because His strength is made perfect in your weakness. Just like Paul wrote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's not just a verse, it's a reality for every believer. For you, so when you feel like giving up, when the distractions roar and your purpose feels distant, remember this: you are not doing this alone. The same God who called you will carry you. The same Spirit who spoke to your heart will strengthen you to the finish line. Stay focused, stay faithful, stay firm, because what's ahead is greater than what you've left behind. And your purpose? It's just getting started. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to stand out for God's glory. And that's where we pick up the thread standing out, not just to be different, but to be deeply aligned with your purpose. Because the more you chase after people's applause, the more you lose touch with God's call. And once you recognize that, the only approval that matters becomes crystal clear. So stop wasting your time chasing validation. Start investing that time in pleasing the one who gave you breath, purpose, and life. Because in Him is where your true strength lives. That's where peace grows. That's where your purpose ignites. Too often, we're pulled in 100 directions by the world's noise, endless scrolling, constant notifications, the pressure to keep up. But motion isn't always progress. Activity isn't always productivity. And busy doesn't always mean blessed. We wake up and rush from task to task, believing that busyness is a badge of success. But if we're honest, how often does that leave us feeling hollow, disconnected, and burned out? We end up mistaking the urgent for the important. And in doing so, we miss what God has been trying to show us all along. That's why we must pause, reflect, realign. Some distractions wear masks. They look like good things work, opportunities, social connections, even ministry obligations. But beneath the